Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. I am your host, Will McFadden. I am joined as always by Tori, McElhaney, and Terrin, Waack. The Falcons are looking to break their 4-game losing streak on the road against the Las Vegas Raiders, who have lost their last 9 games. They're playing on Monday Night Football. But before we get into the football matchup, just this game being out in Las Vegas, have either of y'all ever been to Vegas?
No. I'm looking forward to it. First time. One of our comms reps, Jarvis Carter, it'll be his birthday while we're out in Vegas.
There you go.
Should have a little bit of fun. Not too much fun because we still have work to do and it's a work trip, but a little bit of fun. He should be celebrated. But I'm really excited about it.
I'm very excited. I have mixed emotions about like my first trip being to Vegas being a work trip because it does dim the lights a little bit.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, that's probably not how you envision it going. But
I am really excited to see the Sphere.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forgot
really
about that.
Which is a weird thing to be excited about, but like it's kind of become this thing in pop culture.
Yeah.
Outside of Taylor, which artist would you really want to see in the Sphere?
I know that like Shania Twain did a Vegas residency like not too long ago. I would love to see her or like any type of like pop princess. Like I would love to see like Ariana Grande. I would love to, which I don't think she's going back to music after Wicked, but like I like
obviously
the idea.
Sabrina Carpenter would be really cool.
Carpenter would bring the house down.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift obviously is number one, but I can't. You took Taylor's option
she's
of Taylor
off the table.
away.
She's the obvious number one. To bring it back to Shania Twain real quick, did either of y'all ever watch Broad City?
No.
So there's like a running bit in that show where one of the main characters just is in love with Shania and works at a gym, and Shania ends up one time coming, and a running excuse for her is that she can't make something because she's coaching Shania Twain through her workout. So one time Shania actually does show up. It's this whole episode. And at one point Shania is like, man, I feel like a smoothie.
Wow.
And it is the cringiest, even cringier than what I just did right there.
And that was pretty cringy.
It was pretty cringy.
Yeah. No, I love Shania Twain.
She's great.
I love Shania Twain. I tried to use Shania Twain to convince Tori to come out last weekend.
She did. She did.
See? Everybody uses Shania Twain as excuses all the time.
She did. That
solely sent that song, and I was like, well, just listen to it.
Yeah, you'll get ready to go out, have a couple drinks. And I was like, no, I'm in my Christmas pajamas and I'm watching Love Actually. I'm not getting out of my couch.
It was worth a shot.
Are you guys excited to see Allegiant Stadium?
Yeah. I don't have, though I will say, and this is completely off, but after going up to US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, that was one of the best, I think, professional game environments that I have ever been to. That was really cool. The stadium was really awesome. Their whole lore of like Skull and the Vikings.
The fake snow is
the
crazy.
Fake snow. It was my favorite experience that I've had at an opposing stadium.
We were blessed too with the second highest attendance in that stadium's history.
Really?
Yeah.
I have to imagine the first would have been the very first game, right?
Yeah,
Probably.
I didn't look into that.
Yeah. No, that's.
But I can assume so.
But it was packed, and it was so loud a couple of times, and it was a really, just as like a fan of football, like to be in that environment was pretty cool.
It was insane.
Despite the game going how the game went.
Right. All pregame. Yeah, it
right.
was really cool.
Everything up until the fourth quarter. Let's be real. Let's be real.
Yeah, when the Falcons did score, it got noticeably quiet.
Oh yeah,
it would be like very, very, very loud, and then it's like, oh, now I can hear a pin drop.
Like when Tyler Algier spiked the ball in the end zone, I was like, I think I heard that.
You could hear the ball hit the ground.
You ask athletes sometimes, and whether they would like make a crazy play at home or on the road, and some are like, no, there's nothing better than the deafening silence. When you're in somebody else's house and you make the play and everybody is just quiet.
Yeah.
That sometimes is an even better feeling than making the play in front of your own fans and having everybody go nuts because you almost see the impact of your actions and how they just like rip the joy out of other people, right? So I
Joy rippers.
I don't know if you guys are going to get the exact same type of experience and environment at Allegiant Stadium this week, right, with the 2-11 Las Vegas Raiders. But honestly, it doesn't even matter, I think, so much about the opponent in this one. As it has been for the last 4 weeks, this one comes down to the Falcons. And once again, a lot of the conversation centers around the quarterback position. And so, Terrin, you were at Raheem's press conference today, talked a lot about Kirk. What was kind of the gist that you got from him?
He said the same thing he said Monday and the same thing he said Sunday. Kirk Cousins is the starting quarterback. There's no if, ands, or buts right now.
I think, too, the point of him kind of saying, like, okay, Kirk has gotten us to this point, and that's a reason why we're sticking with him, is kind of been his calling card of the last few press conferences. To play devil's advocate, you're also in
game back.
You're a game back. You're also in the position that you are because you haven't gotten what you needed to out of this offense over the last 4 or 5 weeks, not counting the bye week.
Fair. Especially in the red zone.
Especially in the red zone. So, and turnovers are such a big part of that. And turnovers, to me, have been kind of the story that I've stuck with this week. And I'll say this, too. The turnover issue of the Falcons is an organizational issue. It's a team-wide issue. It's not just on Kirk Cousins. Now, granted, should Kirk Cousins be throwing the interceptions that he is when he is a vet of 13 years and has a $100 million guaranteed contract? Arguably, probably not.
Like, I don't think that's arguable.
I don't think it's arguable. I think I think Kirk would agree with me. I think everyone would agree with me. Some of the interceptions have been really bad. And I think that, but in the context of turnovers being a team problem, it's not just a Kirk problem.
Well, I don't think the biggest turnover of the Vikings game came from Kirk Cousins. It was
the fumble.
Ray Ray's fumble.
Yeah, and that's a special teams play. And then you also, the other side of the coin is while Kirk Cousins is giving the ball up at a significant rate over the last month and a half, the defense simultaneously is not getting the ball back.
Great point.
And even though I think that this defense has played very well in certain stints and how they looked against the Chargers and how they looked in pass rush against Sam Darnold and against the Vikings, and I just kind of am sitting here being like, you still need more from the defense. And you can't just sit here and put everything on Kirk. You can put a lot of it on Kirk because these interceptions are what they are, but you can't. It's an offense, defense, and special teams problem, these turnovers. And when you're in these games and they're one-score games, as the NFL prides itself on being, possessions are at a premium anyways. So when you're giving up possessions via turnovers wherever they're coming from, or the byproduct of that, not getting more possessions, when you're in one-score games, like that's an absolute cause and effect.
Yeah.
And the Falcons overall this year have given the ball up 20 times, and they've only taken it away 11 times. And
that's big.
2-1 in average every game.
It's why Nate Landman this week, and talking to the media on Monday, said it was the number one priority for them, down the stretch. Like you said, they have not been creating the takeaways defensively to earn those extra possessions for the offense. It's ironic a little bit that they are kind of winning time of possession the last couple of weeks, where when they were winning games at the beginning of the season, we were like, yeah, but you're kind of getting crushed in time of possession. What's up? And Raheem was like, I don't care about that. We care about scoring points. So, I think they would be totally fine losing time of possession as long as they were scoring points maybe quickly like the Vikings were. And that's been missing a little bit. And again, a lot of it can circle back to the quarterback position. But to your point, Tori, it is a team-wide issue, and it's something that they need to rally around the quarterback. And
here's the thing is, I'm not making an excuse for Kirk in saying this either.
No.
You expect
both can be true.
Both can be true simultaneously. You can be wanting and needing more from Kirk Cousins, but you can also be wanting and needing more from the defense as well. And I want to make that perfectly clear.
This is not the whole team.
This is not me kind of just carrying water and being like, oh, the Falcons just are going to continue to throw Kirk Cousins out there. No, you need more from him. Point blank, period.
Yeah.
But again, other side of the coin, you need more from a lot of guys.
Yeah, there were one of the things that Raheem said during his press conference today, is that he's had some stretches before in his career where he's gone through things like this, whether it was 4 games, whether it was 1 game, 2 games, but he's been able to bounce back previously. So I kind of looked through Pro Football Reference to just see, okay, what are some of these stretches before? I don't know if there's been one that is quite this long to this degree, right? And that's why we've kind of been saying this is arguably the worst stretch of Kirk's career. But in 2015, which was his first, I think, full season as a starter, he didn't get off to a great start. He had a few games there with multiple picks, only 1 touchdown in a lot of them, but then all of a sudden he had 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, 124.7 passer rating. Then he had a little bit of a dip again with another interception. Then he bounced right back, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Yeah. And then he went on a roll. Yeah. And this has been a little bit of the story, Terrin, of Kirk Cousins throughout his career. And I know you were talking to some people up in Minnesota who have much more experience with him and kind of the ups and downs that he has gone through. What did you kind of learn in those conversations?
Yeah, that was something that was eye-opening to me, because here we were in Atlanta being like Kirktober, and it's like, what happened in October and why isn't it repeating in November? And they're like, we dealt with that for 6 years. Like, he'll have like these really, really hot streaks, and then there will be troubles. And that was something I heard from more than one person who covers the Vikings. And it's just kind of like a perspective that you kind of wish everyone had. Not just like us specifically, but all of Atlanta, where it's not like, oh, this is such a like weird thing happening, where if you look at his career, this is kind of normal for him. But as you said, like, he has been able to turn it around. He has said that himself when his back is against the wall, he has been able to step up to the plate, or whatever simile, analogy, cliche.
Get off the mat. He used that one.
Get off the mat. Whatever cliche you want to plug
Fall off the horse
in
and
there.
get back up.
Right,
all of those.
Yeah. And so I just thought it was interesting to hear that this is kind of a common theme throughout his career. Can't say I was paying all that much attention to Kirk Cousins with the Vikings, because it wasn't NFC South necessarily. But looking at it now and looking at like what he has done in the fall versus the winter, it is a stronger start earlier, and it kind of falls off. And that stinks, because when it's falling off, it's kind of when it matters most. It is when it matters most.
Yeah, I love what you said, though, about you wish everybody kind of had that perspective, right? And I think it's true in like any relationship in our life, right? Like if the more you know about somebody, the more familiar you are with, like, if I say this, it's going to push this button.
Yeah.
If they say this, like, it's going to lead to this argument, or I do this, like.
You're less up in arms about it.
Yeah, exactly. Everything now is new, and so I think there's a tendency to react in kind of the strongest possible fashion, because it's all new information, and you really want to see things get better quickly, right? And there was a question from Allison Mastrangelo of WSB TV, and Raheem, I thought, gave a great answer, really breaking down from his perspective as the leader of this organization, his thought process. And I started writing down this whole quote, and I was going to just sit here and read it off to you, but who wants to hear me talk for a minute straight? Let's just go ahead and hear it directly from Raheem Morris himself.
You lead an organization, and you got to have trust and belief in the people that got you to where you were, right? Kirk came here, and he got us to a point that we are in a playoff contention. And you got to believe, and you got to have the resolve to be able to stick and stay steady-handed by the guy that you believe in. And I don't want to be like some organizations who make harsh decisions or critical decisions on your critical decision makers when they fail you or they make their mistakes, right? I just feel like it's our job and my job to back him at the highest level of certainty to get him to get out there and play better. And this has nothing to do with a non-belief of our backup or anything like that. But he is a rookie, and we do have a plan.
So, yeah, I think in that quote, what you heard was a little bit of the reasoning behind sticking with Kirk and the message that it sends not only to the player, because if you're expecting Kirk to turn this around, I don't think it benefits him or the team to increase the amount of pressure that he's already feeling. You want things to feel comfortable. You want things to feel natural, because, Tori, you've heard him say, like, he's being kind of overly decisive maybe, and he's just pulling the trigger really quickly, and not always to the Falcons' advantage.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think something that I've just noticed in his game, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening notice in his game, is that there is this almost like thinking too much that's happening. To your point, being too decisive and maybe not seeing things fully all the way through, and being so locked in on one side of the field that you don't see Kyle Pitts or Drake London on the other side. And, I say that with a grain of salt, because I don't know what his reads are. I don't know what his progressions are.
Yeah.
I don't know what the play call is. All I can do is look at the result of it and judge based on that. But even in that, you know that there are reads and there are checks and there are things.
You know enough about football to be able to,
Jury's out for some people in my DMs, but I promise I do know what I'm talking about. But I think with Kirk, it is this thing about being too decisive and almost overthinking it. Like, he's double pumping a lot.
Anytime I see that kind of pump,
I know. Anytime I see
tough.
any quarterback at any level double pump, and it's to the extent of what he's doing it, I'm kind of like, it just gives me pause every single time. And a lot of them have led to interceptions where he's trying to force it to Drake London. There have been so many times where I feel like he is forcing it to Drake specifically. Whereas I think sometimes he's gotten away with it, but other times it's like it's turned into turnovers or it's turned into tipped balls. How many times was when he was throwing the ball in Minnesota, did the ball get tipped at the line of scrimmage? Because the defensive line is sitting there watching him and they're like, here he goes. Like, I just think that there is this, like, again, to his point that he has said, being too decisive and kind of trying to force his way into the game and not letting the game come to him, which I think at this point in his career is pretty surprising, because the whole point of going out and getting someone like Kirk Cousins is that you don't really have these issues. He's a quote unquote, using Raheem's term, an elite processor. Elite processors process the game. And it was something that I praised with him in Tampa, because you look at every single touchdown that he threw in Tampa, he was hitting his third, fourth, fifth read.
Yeah,
and I wrote significantly about that and how I felt like that was a turning point for his establishment in Zach Robinson's offense. And I remember being like, oh, he's got it now. He's comfortable in this thing. Like, he's ripping, roaring, ready to go. But then you come out of that, and outside of like the Dallas game, haven't seen that same Kirk. And so I think it's warranted. I understand the fan base's tenor on all of this. It's warranted, especially when the Falcons put themselves in the position drafting a quarterback at number 8 overall, and him not seeing the field. But to the point of what Raheem Morris is saying, there's a plan for Michael Penix. And I'm not making the decisions. All I can sit here again and say is that if they feel so strongly in this plan, and you also have $100 million guaranteed in Kirk Cousins to not make the decision, I just think there's so many more factors at play here in the decision making of the coaching staff in the front office about what they're going to do at the quarterback position.
Absolutely. I mean, any decision that could be made will have ripple effects that resonate outwards for seasons to come. And if you are Raheem Morris, it is your job to consider all of that.
Yeah.
If you're just watching the game at home, it's not. And I get the idea of instant gratification. This isn't working. We need to do something to shake things up. But we don't know that they're not doing things to shake things up. Out on the practice field, in team meeting rooms, like, there can be other methods to try to get more production than making a change at the most important position and inserting a rookie for the first time during the most pivotal 4-game stretch. I personally, I'll trust the 13-year veteran who I've seen do it time and time again.
Well, my question is like, okay, because I just kind of reading the tea leaves, and both of you can answer this question. I don't care who answers it. But to me, it's like, okay, Kirk Cousins, let's say the Falcons lose the next couple of games. Let's say the Bucs firmly hold on to the top of the NFC South. Let's say the Falcons play themselves mathematically out of contention for the playoffs.
0%.
There is a 0.00% chance that they will be in the postseason. What do you still stick with Kirk, or do you throw Michael Penix out there? Like, I think that's a question that we've been asked time and time again in the mailbag, and that's kind of just me reading the tea leaves of like, at that point, that decision feels very different than the point that we're in now, where you are still theoretically in playoff contention. Does that make sense?
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
no, it does.
Terrin, you want to take it?
Not really, but I will.
She said no. I don't want to touch it with the
it's
temple.
She don't want the smoke.
She don't want that smoke.
It's still a difficult question to answer. I would, if you're deciding now that you're going to fully believe in Kirk Cousins, you see it through the season. There's only 4 games left. I don't know what good, and I understand it would get him live reps, and this is also coming from the person who wanted to see Kirk Cousins in the preseason.
I was about to say, this is coming from the
The
queen.
180 that you have done.
Oh, man, how the Falcons have changed you.
I don't know. I just wouldn't, like, if you're sticking to it, you stick through it. That might be the stubborn in me more than anything, where it's like, if you say you fully believe in this man and you're going to stand by him, you do it through the entire season. And that's more so it, more than getting Michael Penix Jr. an opportunity. And I don't know, like, what that would do to be like to his, I don't want to say confidence or mental state, because that all sounds very dramatic, but just kind of being like, all right, well, we have absolutely no chance. Here you go. I don't know. I don't like that either.
I think I look at what they have done in some of these games where in the fourth quarter they are kind of out of the game, and they have put Michael Penix in, right?
Yeah.
And so I
haven't
do,
like that.
But see, I understand that, right? Because what are they saying about Kirk? We're trusting the guy who has put us in a position to make the playoffs. if you're not in position to make the playoffs anymore, then the calculus, I think, changes a little bit. And your eye does shift towards the future a little bit more. And just like they did kind of with Desmond Ridder, you say, all right, let's go ahead and start getting an early start on that future outlook. And let's go ahead and put him in. The only way I think that they don't do that is truly if this plan is something that like we've never seen before, where they feel like, hey, the reason we selected this guy at number 8 is because we think he is one of the ones. And like, we're really excited to unveil him when we do, and we've got this plan that is going to take the league by storm, and you don't want to unveil that early. That's the only argument against it.
I also think next season matters, because if you just put Penix in for like a game or two, but then you play Kirk week 1 next season, that's the same thing as putting him in now and then playing Kirk again later.
Here's the thing,
not
is
necessarily, because the playoffs at this point you're out of the playoffs.
You're out of playoff contention. Like I think my biggest thing is like looking at the if you're looking at the future and there is this grand plan for Michael Penix. Personally, why do you feel so strongly? Maybe this is a question that I ask Raheem Morris. I wasn't in the press conference today because I was with Fox, so I was in a different location. But like maybe it's something where you ask, why do you feel so strongly about this plan in place for Michael Penix? What is? I mean, I guess you don't have to get into the nitty gritty if you want to hold it.
He was asked today
about
the plan,
what it is and why he believes in it.
Yeah, I mean the plan was he is the future, and
but no, like not
the
like,
ceiling is the roof.
That was in a specific, like not in a generic like way, like the whole like thing that they've been saying since they drafted him.
See, that's what I'm
continue with his answer.
Go ahead.
But yeah, he went on to say like he's the future. The reason we did this is because we have an idea of what we want from him in the future and whatnot. Like he didn't get into the nitty gritty and stuff like that, but he was also then questioned like, so if you put him in now, does that mess with his development? And that was kind of, I think, what's holding them back from implementing said plan now. And he's like, I don't know. And I don't think they're willing to take that risk if it messes with his development. So they want him to take this whole season, it seems, to learn, to grow, to see maybe how Kirk does handle the rest of it for his future.
Development meaning like, all right, if he goes in and he throws 3 picks in his first game,
like,
you don't want to ruin a player's confidence. But if you look back at Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Love, all these players that everybody likes to point to about like, that's how you do it. Patrick Mahomes got to start late in that year because the Chiefs had already wrapped up a playoff spot, right? Like different circumstance. But I do think that one game from Patrick Mahomes did benefit him and the team overall to kind of see him out there. So that's where, to Tori's earlier point, if they're out of contention, then I think the math changes a little bit.
So who do you think, like when you're kind of looking at it, I think the elephant in the room here of this entire decision is Kirk Cousins' contract.
Yeah.
And it is how much money is being paid to Kirk Cousins. I think when you look at the scenarios of Green Bay and the Chiefs, which is oftentimes the scenario and the base point or the foundational point of which I think this front office has looked to.
And they're certainly the most successful.
The most successful, and they've said that time and time again, the Green Bay model, if you will. So if that's the model, the situations in those scenarios, I don't think that you were paying Alex Smith the money that you're paying Kirk Cousins right now in year 1. I don't think that you were paying Aaron Rodgers on the back half of whatever deal he was in. He had one foot out the door.
I think it was pretty close because I do think at that point in time,
I know, I need to look at
Aaron
it.
Rodgers is like 2 MVPs during that
Right.
stretch. Like he was one of the highest paid quarterbacks, but he was a firmly established player, not somebody you brought in free agency
Right,
to say, we're giving you starter money for 2 years. Like that is the thing, is the plan also involved
When does
Kirk.
the plan start?
It's already started.
Yeah.
Like it's already like you drafted Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Like the moment you have the conviction
Phase
to feel
two. When does
It's
phase 2
short-term
start?
success
Yeah.
and long-term sustained success.
Right.
But the short-term success has not been happening,
Right.
and that is partially due to the quarterback position. But I think that so let's talk about this upcoming game, because one of the things I wanted to do was kind of walk through maybe how we would develop a game plan, knowing everything that's on the table, everything that's happened the last 4 weeks. Do you think, Terrin, is this a game that the Falcons should come out against a 2-11 team and allow Kirk to maybe work through these kinks, let it rip? Or do you think they dial it back? They say, hey, we can run the ball on these guys. Bajan has been playing really well. Tyler had a nice game against Minnesota. They were a great run defense, and yet you saw them move the ball effectively on the ground. And do you protect Kirk a little bit? And you say, hey, we're going to put you in some really advantageous situations, and that's when we're going to allow you to throw the ball. But otherwise, defense, run game, we got to get a win out in LV.
I go both ways. I know
I'm running the ball. I'm running the ball nonstop. I'm just running it.
So I'm also going against things I said earlier this season where it's like, don't overcorrect. But at this point, you've been trying to like go back to October. Is there a Taylor Swift song that's like that?
Back to December.
Oh.
We're in December, so you're not going back to it.
Okay.
Cheers on that.
Right here in December.
Yep.
Yeah, well, anyways, I missed that reference. But when it comes to the overcorrection, he's already pushing too hard for things. I think you simplify the game plan, but you let him rip it.
But I don't
like
think
that.
those things are one and the same.
Well, I get what she's saying, where if you, instead of having a menu of 50 plays, you say, hey, we've got 15 plays in here for you. Almost you take it back to almost like a rookie mentality, and you say, we're going to just rep these and practice forever. Like,
'Cause you
you're
wanna
just
show
running
you
15
trust him.
plays. We're going to make sure that when you come out here, like the opening game script, those guys are very comfortable and confident. Same with a 2-minute drill. It's like you go to the plays that you know like the back of your hand, and maybe they do dial back the playbook a little bit and say, Kirk, just do these 8 plays, and we're going to put you in a great position to do it.
Like, we know you can do it, and we're not just going to hand the ball off, because I think if they just run, it's kind of showing that they are a little hesitant about Kirk. But if they
And you still
do
need
the
him.
simple menu, like if you give him what he's the best at and what he's good at and what he's comfortable with, be like, all right, go for it.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. And I agree with the like simplifying things. I think when someone is overthinking, the best thing you can do is just give them something easy to accomplish to build that confidence back up. I'm also running the heck out of the ball in Vegas. I think that this run offense, Tyler Algier, Bijan Robinson, this entire offensive line, specifically Caleb McGarry and Chris Lindstrom and Drew Dahlman, like the right side of this.
Drew Dahlman's played well.
Drew Dahlman has played well since he has come back. And
Shout out
to Drew Dahlman. But I'm ready to run the heck out of the ball because
Run the dang ball, Bobo.
Run the dang ball. I think what they did against the Vikings should not be taken lightly, and I think what they did against the Vikings is being overshadowed by the issues they were having with Kirk, with the secondary,
turnovers,
all of that kind of stuff. What they did as a rushing unit in Minnesota against the best run defense in the league at the time, I'm heralding it.
Their opening drive again was amazing.
Yeah.
It was such a good opening drive.
It was like, let's get the ball to Bijan. What did I say in the last podcast about, like, if you can get Bijan going and get him going early, that bodes well for you. And look, they did. When they get to the red zone and they're handing the ball off to Bijan and handing the ball off to Tyler, and it's like working, and it worked the entire game. There was really not a letting up of what they were doing from a rushing offense standpoint. Do it again, because it's not like the Raiders have a incredible run defense. Not like what the Vikings have.
No, the Raiders defense has allowed 213 rushing yards over expected on design runs this season, which is the second most in the NFL. The Falcons are the only team with 2 running backs who have more than 70 yards over expectation this season. So, again, run the ball. That's why I think this
smart
game
move.
plan.
But if you want to prove to Kirk Cousins that you fully believe in him, let him throw it.
Okay.
That's my point.
I
Like,
love that gambler in you. Look at you going out to the desert and just being like,
embracing the Vegas.
Yeah, let's
But
go. Let
I'm
it
also
rip.
looking at like
Roll the
Las
dice.
Vegas's turnovers. They're 31st in the league with the 7 interceptions, with 8 turnovers overall, but 7 of those interceptions where it's like, this isn't the team that's going to pick them off left and right, possibly. But like, so go for it. Go for it. Like, let him get into a rhythm and like balance it. Make it a balanced attack. Like, I'm not saying don't hand the ball ever to Bijan or Tyler, but if you're saying you fully believe in him, prove it. And don't just send him out there to start. That's not like, that's proving one way you believe in him, but like, let him play. Let the man play.
Well, I don't think like any of us are being like a complete like ultimatum. You're either running or you're passing in Vegas.
Right.
Like, this is like, it's all about the game plan and it's all about the feel for the game. I think it's just very like, this coaching staff is always looking at, like, they don't really look at, I say this, I don't know for sure. I'm sure they look at trends, but they're very forward thinking, or only really focusing on the game at hand. What is the game plan that is going to win us the game? I think if you can establish the run and run the ball well, and of course, sprinkle in some significant plays for Kirk, significant to get the ball moving downfield.
You need explosives with Darnell. You need Drake to get some touches. Yep.
I'm not saying take that away and just hand the ball off to it's not an ultimatum. It's not like one side here and one side here. I think we're all in the same middle ground of it. I'm just saying your run game is working. You're throwing interceptions elsewhere, and you haven't thrown an offensive touchdown in 4 games.
Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's. One of the questions in the mailbox this week was about play-action passing. And you wrote a story coming out of the bye week about the Falcons intending to do more play-action passes. And so I kind of looked at the numbers. They're actually below what they were going into the bye week in play-action pass rate. However, the big caveat there is that you're down by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against Minnesota. You're not going to run play-action passes there. Right. So I think that has a big to do with kind of their lower numbers. But to your point, if you're running the ball effectively, that does set up some play-action passing opportunities for Kirk. And I would not be shocked if they come out of this game and we look back and they have one of the highest rates of play-action that they've had all season and an effective ground game, because I do think those two can really marry together well.
Yep.
Exactly.
Not to steal words out of your mouth, but they do.
We are on the same page today.
We are.
So moving down this page in front of me, the Raiders who could kind of cause some problems for the Falcons, right? Again, 2-11, so I don't think a ton of Falcons fans are familiar with the bulk of this roster, but they're certainly familiar with Brock Bowers.
Yep.
Brock Bowers,
should be.
They should be here in Georgia. He is second in receptions among all players. He's a rookie tight end, and he is second in the league with 87 catches. I believe CeeDee Lamb is number 1. Jamar Chase is number 1. Sorry. CeeDee Lamb's up there too. But no, Jamar Chase is freaking just rolling this year.
Yeah, he's being Jamar.
He's Jamar Chase. Yeah. But Brock is also 5th in receiving yards, 933, again, as a rookie tight end. That's crazy. He's got 4 touchdowns on the season. So, I mean, is he at the top of your list, Tori, when you're looking at guys on this team?
Regardless of what happens with the quarterback situation that they've got going on, we're recording this on Thursday. We haven't even seen the first injury report yet. So I want to preface this by saying
that's kind of why we're not getting
into
really
the whole, talking about the whole Desmond Ridder,
Aiden O'Connell
of it all, because we at this point in time we don't know what the deal with that is. Regardless, Brock Bowers is their offense. He is such a major part of what they do, the success that they have, the mismatches that they present. I mean, it's kind of similar conversation that we had in Kyle Pitts' first year with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, great point.
And the mismatches and how much of an asset he is in the pass game. And it's almost kind of like the same storyline of what Kyle Pitts was when he first came into the league and now what Brock Bowers is doing with the Raiders. So regardless of what happens with the quarterback position with Las Vegas, Brock Bowers is going to be a problem, and you have to neutralize him. And I'll say this, too, coming off of this secondary's play in Minnesota, where I would argue is one of their collective worst performances that they have had this year, a bit uncommon in what they were giving up in terms of explosives from what we have seen from them. To me, if you can neutralize Brock Bowers, this is a get-back game for the secondary, a get-back to confidence, a get-back to more of the performance and keeping a kind of a lid on the offense. I think this is a good opportunity for this secondary to get a bit of their confidence back as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Terrin, I mean, when I look at Brock and I'm trying to think of, all right, how do you start defending him? I really do think you have, like they did with Justin Jefferson, multiple eyes on him at all times. I think you put a linebacker, whether it's Troy, whether it's Caden, it's probably a mix of everybody. But you also have Jesse looking at him. You have Justin Simmons looking at him. Where's A.J. Terrell? I would put A.J. Terrell just solely on Jacoby Myers. It's kind of like the old Bill Belichick, let's just take one guy, take him away, and then maybe double team your best receiver, that type of stuff. But Jacoby Myers is really the only other guy out there at the receiver position. No slight to anybody else on the Las Vegas Raiders, but he's got 6 catches for 743 yards. He is capable in his own right. Do you think AJ, if he takes that chess piece off, is it Brock? And do you really want to double team Brock in this one?
I think you do, because he, as you said, it is their offense, and tight ends have kind of been a sore point to this defense this season. I mean, you have people like Kate Otten who did well, TJ Hawkinson did well, even with the Addison and Jefferson duo out there. Yeah. Jake Ferguson did too. And so you need to neutralize him, and I think since he is the main point for them, that's it. That's why I say it. And at the same time, he's averaging 10.7 yards per reception. He's averaging a first down on his own.
Yeah.
He's averaging 71.8 yards per game. And I think what's really interesting is hearing how he is second in receptions, and then thinking back to Raheem's comments today about Kyle Pitts, where it's because Kyle had 1 reception on 6 targets last week. And and the way Raheem handled it was Kyle's not going to be someone who is getting all the receptions, but they're going to be big receptions. It's going to be 2 for 100-something yards. That was his example. And so seeing that Brock Bowers as another tight end is top 3 in reception count is a very interesting
juxtaposition.
Yeah, when we just talked about how Kyle's going to only have a few, but go for the yardage.
Well, I think that's to Tori's point about his rookie season. It's the way you're using him, right? Yep. Because Kyle was getting the volume, and that's kind of what Raheem said, is he's not a volume tight end. He literally compared him, and I'll give the same caveats Raheem did. Different positions, very different players, but to Deshaun Jackson, who Raheem has experience with. And it's Deshaun would have 2 catches for 180 yards, and then you just wouldn't hear from him the rest of the game. But those 2 catches made a huge impact. And that's, to bring up Tampa Bay, the first 2 touchdowns were to Kyle Pitts. Yep. Explosive plays. That's been an element that's been missing from this offense.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's also, if we're comparing, I feel like it's comparing apples to oranges, but comparing who Brock Bowers has around him in progressions and route trees.
That's why the rookie season is really for Kyle.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because now you look at the pieces around Kyle Pitts. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier. There's a lot to go around, and you only have so many plays. Yeah. And that's kind of been the main point of conversation about this offense for a long time. Why isn't Drake getting the ball? Why isn't Kyle getting the ball? They're getting the ball thrown at them, in Kyle's case, 6 times in the last game with 1 catch.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's not balls being thrown their way.
Right. For
one reason or another, a miscue on Kirk's part or a drop by Kyle.
Yeah, we should mention really quickly Las Vegas defense. Max Crosby is the name to know there, obviously. It's going to be another big matchup for Caleb McGarry. And I'm excited to see this one because I do think Caleb has had a good season.
Yeah.
I think it's been a little bit under the radar, but
another reason I'm run the ball. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. Another reason why I keep kind of harping on really valuing the run game in this game is because of someone like Max Crosby.
What's crazy, too, is that the Raiders have been very susceptible to the screen game this season. A lot of teams like to use the screens against him for this exact reason. Max Crosby is a premier 1A pass rusher, and the best way to slow down a pass rush is sometimes with the screen game.
Yeah. Get the ball away from him.
However, the screen game has been a little bit of an up and down battle for the Falcons all season long. So, we'll see how they decide to attack that and if that is a big part of the game plan again this week. But just one thing I wanted to mention there. So we'll wrap this up by talking about kind of the road ahead for Atlanta. And one of the things that I really liked hearing from Raheem today was he said, quote, "We are essentially playing playoff football right now." And there have been a lot of questions in the mailbag over the last several weeks about, is this a must-win game? And to hear Raheem, come out, and he didn't use the words must-win, but
I think he did.
Okay, then I stand corrected. And that's even more refreshing, frankly, to hear because they are in that situation. They do need to be playing playoff football. And do you like hearing that sense of increased urgency, Tori?
Yeah, because
just the honesty.
Yeah,
honestly,
I love honesty. It's why.
As a journalist, we love honesty.
I'm let's be honest with each other. Let's be upfront. Let's not hide behind kind of some pleasantries when you're on a 4-game lose streak. So yeah, it is and we're gonna get into the numbers of it and everything. But you've essentially taken kind of this idea of a postseason run out of your hands. Because you haven't been able to string wins together. And that's the truth of the matter. And so you have to kind of own up to that. And you kind of have to get it through everyone's heads that it's like, this game, for morale, let's be honest, for morale of the fan base and for just your hopes of even keeping this thing alive, got to beat the Raiders. You have 2-11 Raiders, who's on a 9-game losing streak. You have got to beat them. Point blank, period. The expectation should be nothing less. Sorry.
Drake London kind of said it best in the locker room today. He's like, we don't need to talk about it. We know that it is a must win.
There you go.
Yeah.
And Tyler Algier was like, the urgency has been there for the past 4 games.
Yeah, it's tough though when that urgency has been there and the results are what they are. Mm-hmm. I feel like the gravity of the situation, and the momentum builds in that direction, and it becomes a little bit like, okay, how do we get back to winning? You know, it's been a month since they last won a football game, and that.
It's been a long month.
Yeah. You can almost like forget what it feels like to win, to feel that confidence going out there on a Sunday, knowing, hey, we're better than this team. We're going to roll over this team. They can't stop us. Watch us walk away with the W. And they need to kind of almost defy the gravity, shout out Wicked, of their current situation. And
hit the note, Terrin.
Absolutely not.
Our own Elphaba over there. And get things turned around here. So Tori mentioned the numbers. Yeah. I took a look at the New York Times kind of playoff machine there, and we all know the situation, right? You're in second place now in the NFC South. If the Bucs win out, they're going to the playoffs, right? But they've got a tough matchup this week against the Los Angeles Chargers. Then they've got another tough matchup next week against the Dallas Cowboys. Either one of those, could be a toss-up, but honestly, the Falcons got to worry about their own business. They've got the Raiders, the Giants. Then you've got the Washington Commanders before wrapping up with the Carolina Panthers. And so I looked at the scenarios. Even if the Falcons win 3 of 4, and I just chose the Commanders as their loss because on paper that feels like the toughest game remaining, they would have a 64% chance of making it if the Bucs lose this weekend. If the Bucs win and the Falcons lose one of these remaining 4 games, 19%. Whoa. So I think that shows the importance of the Bucs losing one of these games, right? Because if they don't, again, they're in the playoffs. But you got to handle your business too. If the Falcons win out, the New York Times says they have an 85% chance, kind of regardless of what the Bucs do, because again, there's a couple of tough games left, so there's a chance that the Bucs lose one of these 2 games. What's your reaction kind of hearing that, Tori?
I mean, it's exactly what I said before, where you've taken it out of your hands.
Yeah.
And that's such a tough place to be at because of where you were a month ago and feeling as though you're in a really good spot and having conversations about what a postseason run could look like and feeling like you were outrunning the South, to use that tagline. Yeah. And then to no longer feel that way a month later is the stark reality of the NFL. But it's also the position that you put yourself in by not winning games. And it feels very reminiscent of what it's been the last few years, where we're sitting here in week 15, whatever week it is, and you're talking about the Bucs as much, if not more, than you're talking about the Falcons.
That's the toughest part of all of this, isn't it? Is just the nature of again and again and again.
Right, and it being the same conversation. We're having the same conversation that we've had the last few years of like, okay, what are the Bucs up to? What are the playoff scenarios? Like, what we're having a quarterback controversy. Like, we're talking about this ad nauseum for years, and I think like that's why I'm kind of a little bit just like, I wrote in the notebook that I really don't have words.
Yeah.
Like, what
you
what
understand the fans' frustration, right? Like, we get it. We totally get all this. Yeah.
And I sympathize and empathize, and I
all the thighs.
But
uncozy.
I just don't have words because no one wants to sit here and listen to us talk about like, oh, the performance of this person. It's so good. Yippee. Right. That's being a little bit like, I'm sorry if I'm being callous, but like, they're not winning games.
Yeah, putting makeup on a pig, right?
Putting lipstick on a pig. Like, that's...
Poor pigs.
So I don't... There are some cute pigs out there.
Pigs.
But I that's just where I am. Yeah. And hearing all of this and the numbers of it, it just takes me back to so many other moments covering this team in the last 4 years. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fair, again, because, like, we hear all of it. We see all of it. Like, we owe it to you guys listening to like try to be as real as possible. And we want to share insights from the team and all of that, but we also hear what you guys are saying, and you're not wrong. You guys watch this game too. So we want to try to provide as much information as we can. But Terrin, let's wrap up really quickly with one thing the Falcons got to do on Sunday. I think all of our answers are going to be pretty simple in this one.
Points.
Yeah. So what do they got to do? Just win. That simple. Whatever it takes.
Even if it's by only field goals,
At
win.
all costs.
I think Kirk Cousins needs to throw a touchdown pass.
Okay.
I mean, like,
I like that.
Yeah.
sorry to put pressure on the guy, but you need to
I don't
throw
think-
a
I
touchdown
I don't think
pass.
we're the ones that he has to
No,
worry
I know.
I don't
about.
think that's any added
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah.
I know, but I don't like singling one person out, but you need to throw a touchdown pass.
Here's the thing. Let's just take it a step further. Be better in the red zone.
Yep, that was
I
mine.
mean, the note, I'm glad you put this in here because it was also a note that I had that the Raiders are 25th in red zone defense and 30th in points allowed per game.
Yep.
If there was ever a game where you, on paper, should score points, it's against this defense.
Yep.
The on paper thing gives me flashbacks to other weeks where I'm like, on paper, the Falcons
true.
should win this game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and I
gotta
mean
go out
that's
and do it.
fair. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like we've been saying on paper at the beginning of the season, being like this is the best roster that has come through Atlanta in a long time, and now here we are at 6 and 7.
The paper doesn't matter. The grass/turf does.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, and it takes me all the way back to what they were saying in training camp, right? Like we know the group that we have, we know our expectations on paper and the talent, but we got to go out there and prove it.
Yeah.
And it's prove it time, and they've got to go out and prove it in Las Vegas. It starts this week. This can be a get right game for the Falcons if they go out and play the way that they have at times this season, and honestly the way that we have expected them to way more often than not this year. So that will do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Check us out on YouTube. Be sure to check out the pregame show, which will go at 7:30 before the 8:30 p.m. kickoff for Monday Night Football. We've got Derek Rackley and Taylor Bismore who do an amazing job on the pregame show, breaking it all down for you guys. The postgame podcast will be going up Tuesday afternoon because of just the late start for the Monday night game. We're not recording anything at 3:30 in the morning. Sorry, we love y'all, but just need a little bit of sleep too. I think that's a good spot to wrap up. Again, today's episode presented by Zaxby's. For Tori McElhaney and Terrin Waack, I'm Will McFadden. We will see you guys next time.